Hello again, and welcome to episode 153 of SDGC for Thursday, June 27th. If you're not aware, Super Deformed Gamescast meets right here each and every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we discuss the latest gaming headlines with a wide variety of panel members and guests. We also do a whole bunch of other stuff as time allows, like a separate show about movies and television, community game streaming, a mental health support show, and a bi-weekly morning show every other Friday. If you've been along for the ride so far, welcome home. And if not, hey, feel free to stick around and maybe throw us a subscription. Screwed that one up, didn't I? Every single podcast is archived the next day on our YouTube channel for those who like to watch. And you can find us on all major podcast services for those who like to listen. And without any further ado, how's everybody doing?
How are you, John?
I'm doing okay, Reb. I'm actually doing okay. You know what? I'm doing a lot better than I was the other day. I had a really bad day with anxiety, but I so look forward to my Thursdays with my family here. And it just you all just make me feel so much better about life in general, and I love you all.
After the exorcism of a podcast.
Yeah.
Cleanse, just burn it all out.
Yeah, exactly. We have a very cool guest tonight. Caitlin, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell everybody who you are, where they can find you, and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, cool. So hi, I'm Caitlin Galiz-Rowe. I am a self-proclaimed stupid gay superstar. I run a gaming and media website called YourGeekyGalPal, which you can find at YourGeekyGalPal.com and on all the social medias and Twitch and all that kind of shit at YourGeekyGalPal. And then I'm also just a terrible Twitter user generally. And if you want to find me on that, you can find me at CG and 8Rs.
Outstanding. And I'll tell you what, I've listened to your stuff, and you are doing excellent work, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Well, and I think the community needs more voices like yours. And I am deeply honored that you are here with us on this Thursday night to talk about video games, especially with Pride Month closing out. Which is something that Derek, we're going to get into a little later here. Talk about some of that, and I am counting on you and Reb and Caitlin to lead the conversation for that. But first, what is our first topic tonight, everybody? I want to dive right into this because we've got Pride Month to talk about. We've got some questions to answer from the audience, and what are we talking about first, Derek?
I believe up first was Activision, John.
Was it Activision first? Is that what we're talking about?
We wanted to get the one Treyarch specifically.
Yeah.
We wanted to get that one kind of actual newsy story out of the way before we move into other territories that are less newsy and more just commentary. All
right. So, Reb, do you want to kick us off with that?
Oh God, I didn't open the article. I didn't know I was doing this. Okay.
No. You don't have to.
No. I already talked about this on one podcast this morning. I can probably do this on another one. So, the TLDR, if you missed the article, Kotaku came out. Kotaku's been doing a lot of really good work lately, talking about going and talking to sources at studios and interviewing folks that are dealing with severe crunch, just kind of as a broad topic, but each studio has a different story. Treyarch, Call of Duty, Black Ops 4 apparently had kind of a shitty crunch culture, but which, we've talked a lot about crunch on this podcast before. It's an important topic. We need to keep talking about it. We're not going to address crunch broadly tonight, but what we want to talk about is the kind of unique part of Treyarch's story, and that's that the people that were interviewed for Kotaku's piece, which again, go read it, Kotaku, they do great work, was mostly, at least in that piece, was talked about in terms of the QA department, which was not full-time Treyarch employees. They were folks through a contracting company called Volt. And the main gist of this piece is that these folks felt like they were effectively treated like second-class citizens, people that were not actually, like they weren't really, they weren't legally employees, of course, but like they weren't really part of the team. They weren't really developers on the game. Ranged everything from little things like having to park in a parking lot far away and make a longer walk than everyone else. So, okay, sometimes that happens. To being told outright, okay, we're having a lunch catered in for everybody, but you guys have to wait an hour and then you can come eat the leftovers when everyone else is done. Or I think honestly, the worst one that I thought was in there was the one where because they moved some deadlines for the release date for Black Ops 4, they had to do more crunch, which is awful in of itself. But the QA team was working super duper late. They were working late nights. And after a certain point at the end of the day, when a lot of other people had gone home, they would turn off the AC. And so it got hella hot.
That is
all these computers
fucked up.
No, all
Jesus
these computers are running. It's like 90 degrees in the building, and the QA people go to management or whatever, and they say, "Hey, it's like 90 degrees here at night. It's too hot. Can you please turn the AC on at night?" And management ignored them for a while, and then they were like, "It's broken." And they're like, "No, it's not. It runs during the day. It's not broken. It's fine. Please turn it on." And finally, management, after like, I don't quote me on the time amount, go read the article. I believe it was 2 months. They finally said, "Fine, we'll turn it on." And they did, but it only worked like sporadically. So some nights they'd have air conditioning, some nights they wouldn't. Jesus, and so it's just, there are many such stories in that article. Again, go read it. But I think QA in general, we see in a lot of these crunch articles, we see a lot of mention. I mean, this whole article was mainly about the QA department, but we see a lot of articles that at least mention QA having a really rough time. They're very often contractors. They're very often people. I don't want this to come across as an insult. It's absolutely not. They're usually people with less experience in game development, right? Like it's very often, not always, but it's very often an entry level kind of thing. Like you get into QA, but there's also super high turnover because of conditions like this. Because studios feel that they can treat their QA folks, like this, and they just burn them out and run them through and pick up some more folks who are bright eyed and eager to get into the gaming industry, and then they show up and they burn out, and we just keep kicking them out. And I mean, I have a lot of opinions about this. It very much seems like this is one of the things that's perpetuating the problem of not having a ton of upper level skilled labor in the gaming industry, because people just keep burning out so fast. You don't have a ton of experienced QA people. You don't want to hire experienced QA people because you have to pay them more, and you don't want to pay them more. You want to pay them shit. Like I think these people are getting like $13 an hour in California. Good Lord. And they're so there's not experienced people to do this, and so as a result, they get up on these deadlines. They're having to crunch. They're not sleeping well. They're working long hours. They have a very limited amount of time to get to all these bugs, and they don't have a ton of experience. And so as a result, the bugs don't get dealt with. The game ends up buggy. People end up complaining. They have to push more patches. Vicious cycle perpetuates itself. It's garbage. People get treated like garbage. It's not okay. I don't know what we do about it. We keep talking about it, certainly. But anyway, that's the Treyarch thing in a nutshell.
Well, whenever no, Reb, you killed it.
You are allowed to breathe, Reb.
Yeah, take a breath, Reb.
Drink.
Whenever I hear a story like this, and I don't know about the rest of you, but whenever I hear a story like this, it fucking amazes me that we have a gaming industry at all. Because whenever I hear a story like this, I'm like, how in God's name is this at all sustainable? It doesn't seem like it at all, does it?
There are enough bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young people who want to get into there's so many. Like, how many people this is not me calling you old. You're older than me. When I was growing up, I'm in an age where when I was a young enough teenager that we weren't having serious career ambitions, so we weren't thinking about, where do I want to go to college? But old enough to start thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? A lot of my peers were playing video games. A lot of them were thinking, I want to make video games when I grow up. Like, they were really excited about it. Now, granted, most of the people who said that did not go on to make video
That's what
games.
my son wants to do right now. Right. He's like, I want to make video games. And I'm like,
do you now?
Like,
I'm sure
well,
you
son.
do.
Son, it's good to dream.
Right, but that's like a thing. So there's a lot of people who grow up playing video games who want to go make video games, and there are multiple routes to get into making video games, but one of the, I don't want to say easier ones, I think one of the more accessible ones, because there do seem to be more jobs for it for this very reason, is to go into QA, right? Well, and so they go in, they do it for, I don't know, a year, maybe 2. I don't know what the burnout rate is. It seems pretty high. And then they leave and go do something else, like unionize.
It's time,
unionize.
Everybody,
they're not there. They just leave.
Look, I want to make it very clear to everybody in chat and everybody who's going to listen to this later on Spotify and SoundCloud. If you really want a career in games design, everybody knows, go enroll at Collins College, and they will absolutely teach you to tighten up the graphics on level 3.
Level 3, exactly.
A little bit. It is,
because if you can do that, that's what this industry's missing.
And then you'll go to the bathroom and stare in the mirror for a few seconds and think to yourself, I can't believe I get paid to do this. It's really a wonderful experience in the game industry. Is that place still around, Collins College?
Probably not. But
do they actually still exist?
Probably not. I'm not about to Google it.
I remember, talking about game development, the predatory nature, because Reb makes a very good point, right? Like, there are a lot of bright-eyed people, young people who are like, I grew up playing games. I would love to be involved in this industry. I would love to help create the things that I grew up that have helped shape me. And there's so much predatory bullshit out there. Not just bullshit like Collins College. Like the place probably doesn't even exist anymore. But this is an industry that comes across to me as extremely unforgiving and just absolutely fucking merciless at times. Like I've been a contractor before, right? Like in my line of work. And being a contractor anywhere isn't fun. You're generally regarded as a second-class citizen. When I was a contractor, we weren't allowed to bring in pictures of our family. You weren't allowed to personalize your workspace.
That's true at my job currently.
Exactly. Oh, really? Are you really?
Yeah, like I'm not a contractor, but a lot of the folks I work for a telecom company, and they just brought on a bunch of contractors, and yeah, they were just talking about it yesterday, how like they're not allowed to personalize their workspaces or anything like that.
Yeah, there can be no individuality whatsoever. When we came on board, we were told literally by our program manager, he was like, "You're all bottom feeders, and you can be easily replaced. Never forget that." Yeah, and I was like,
the United States has fucked up ideas about work and how people should do it. Holy shit!
Much, yeah.
Wow, it's almost like Reb is making a really good point about this.
And millennials have been guilt tripped by the older generations into believing that we will be seen as lazy unless we literally go in while we're dying and never use a sick day.
Yes, and let me throw this in here too. So all these things are already happening, all these shitty crunch things. On top of that, you've got, maybe there are some women in this group of people. Maybe there are some LGBTQ people in this group of people. Maybe there's some people of color in this group. And they, because we know the gaming industry, are probably also experiencing something like sexism or racism or harassment on top of that.
In the gaming industry.
Crazy.
You sound like you're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, I do.
You've got the Pepe Silva backboard.
Reb,
that drives them out faster, and so that
Reb,
means
not
the
in
people
my
who cling on and remain are often white dudes. And
surely you're not speaking of my video game industry, Reb.
You are not.
There's some great cis white dudes on this podcast, man. But there's so many of you in the industry, and a lot fewer of other folks.
You do not have to say nice things about me to talk shit on white dudes. It's fine. We suck. Like white people need to be stopped.
We're fucking. I don't know. Like, did you guys see that fucking cold hot dog pie that was circulating on Twitter?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's proof that that white people need to be stopped at all costs.
Say white people are trash, but I get banned from Twitter while Nazis roam free. So
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Hey, dude, I got banned for shitting on Robert E. Lee. You're preaching to the fucking choir.
You got banned for harassing a dead civil war.
I harassed a dead slaver, and I got banned from Twitter. Fucking unbelievable. Right. No, it's. I mean, it's. I'm glad that that organizations like Kotaku are helping shine a light in the darkness because we desperately need it. At the same time, at this point, honestly, everybody, we've heard so many horror stories like this that I don't have any real hope that things are going to change.
No, stop it right now.
No, I do.
I hope they do, but
here's why. We have already. This is. I'm going to preface this. This is obviously nowhere near good enough. This is not actual change. This is not representative of the fact that the industry has magically fixed itself. We got to keep going, but. My editor routinely does a column called 10 Years Ago Today. And he goes back and he looks at the articles from 10 years ago and he, comments on what, the industry was doing. He looks at comments from CEOs and he's like, oh, haha, they said that. Now they're doing the exact opposite thing. It's a very good column. Go read it. Gamesindustry.biz. We're a great website. Anyway, not the point. You look back at the columns 10 years ago. No one's fucking talking about unions. No one's fucking talking about crunch. No one's saying a word. They're not saying it's great. It's just silent. Oh, it sure as hell was happening 10 years ago. We weren't talking about it. Now we're going to these
10 years ago was the Rockstar Wives, wasn't it? With Red Dead Redemption.
It was, but
ooh, yeah.
And then before that, you had the EA one.
That's fair.
About 5 years before that.
But I mean,
that's fair. But now we have people going to. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go.
Now we have people going, we have journalists going to events and asking CEOs about it, and CEOs are kind of answering. They're not great answers. They're mostly PR answers, but they're starting to talk about it. We've had a lot of articles come out in the last, even the last month. I'm speaking out of my ass right now, but I think the Destiny 2 folks, like Bungie just recently said, sorry, we got to delay a patch or something because we don't want to crunch. Nintendo pushed Animal Crossing forward because they're like, we don't want to crunch.
Oh, and you've seen the responses too.
I know, and fuck them. But the conversation is happening, and that's how it starts, right? With a conversation, we're talking about it. It's not going to get fixed overnight, but we got to keep the momentum going. We cannot give up hope. A conversation is miles better than what we were doing 10 years ago.
Yo, fucking Reb is fired the fuck up, and I am here for every second of it.
Because I believe in hope.
Well, so the thing about it too is like the conversation is great, obviously. But like we talked to Emma from Game Workers Unite over on our podcast on Palin Around, and we were kind of asking, you know, like what else can we do? Because, you know, my site has written about it. Obviously, bigger, more prominent sites are writing about it. People are talking about it. People are podcasting about it. But it's like that doesn't feel like enough. And she basically flat out told us like, this is kind of a game dev thing now. Like they have to be the ones to do it for themselves because like they're the ones who are suffering, and like that's how collective bargaining works, is like they have to be the ones to come together and do it, which I mean obviously is a whole thing in and of itself. But like I believe in hope too, but I'm like it's kind of on them now. Like we're opening the door with the conversations and stuff, but they got to be the ones to walk through it.
It is. I agree with you. And also, again, I feel like I'm talking in my ass because I don't have the articles right in front of me. But I believe we have, at least on our site, we've published stories over the last couple of years surveying opinions about unions at things like GDC from developers. Too, yeah. I have not done that work personally.
I'm talking just in general, yeah.
But I believe that this year, the favorability of developers towards unions that were surveyed was more on the side of unions. Like the number of people who are aware of unions, aware of how they can benefit them, and maybe considering that it might be a good idea to have one is increasing. It's not at a point, we're not at the point yet where one's just going to pop up tomorrow. But there already are some, there's the French game developers union that's been around for I think a couple of years. So again, we're not there yet, but it is starting. And that's why I think it's worth continuing. Like we can't just stop talking about it. Yeah, you're right. It's on the developers now, but if we stop talking about it, that kills some of the momentum. And we got to keep
us talking about unions is making it easier and making it more broadly socially acceptable within the United States fucked up work culture for developers to actually think, maybe this is the thing we should do. Because it's not like people didn't know that unions were a thing. But there's a lot of that misinformation, and there's a lot of the thought of, okay, well, if we unionize, public opinion will be against us. And if it's tiny drops in the bucket, right? But if we collectively can help steer and move that needle to where that's more desirable, more acceptable, then that will kind of create the environment within which more developers feel comfortable attempting to unionize. So that's where we both can do nothing, but also can do an awful lot. We've just got to keep doing what we're doing. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating when a thing that has not been working, for us to say, okay, but that's exactly the right thing. We've just got to keep doing it for a while, even though there's no sign of progress. But it is going to feel like nothing is changing until all of a sudden everything is changing. That's how this is going to work.
Do you think we're finally on the path to this? Like, are we finally on the path to unionization? Like, because we keep we've been saying it for years now, right? Like, the industry needs to unionize, and we all agree with that. But it's been a mantra that we've all been repeating for years. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Are we finally getting any closer?
I don't think it's been that loud a mantra. I mean, I haven't been working in the industry for that long, but my impression, just from kind of understanding the pulse of things, is that not this last GDC, but the previous GDC, when Game Workers Unite kind of stepped up and said, "Hey, we're here. Let's fucking do this," was like the first step on that path. So again, we're not far down it. We have a lot of work to do, but I think that something meaningful has changed in the last year. I also think, and I don't want to dig into this right now, I do think that the piles of mass layoffs lately have kind of helped push a lot of folks, because a lot of people who, you could be in your job as a game developer and you could be fine. Like you could maybe you crunch a little bit, but maybe you could feel that unions don't really have anything to offer you. And then all of a sudden your studio gets shut down, 50 people, including you, get laid off, and you get shitty severance. And you're like, wait, what the fuck just happened? I don't want that to ever happen to me again. Holy crap. And so now we've got all these mass layoffs happening. And the reason why I bring that up is because news hit today that Gumi just laid off 32 employees in its European studio. And there seems to be rumors about layoffs at level 5 in the US as well. I don't know if that one's true or not, but I've seen a couple people talking about it on Twitter. So that's still happening, and I think the waves of layoffs lately have kind of combined with all the other things like the discussion about crunch and kind of the exposés that have been coming out, and it's pushing a lot of people in that direction more so than it would have a few years ago.
Well, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be incumbent upon people like us and podcasts like this to keep pressing the issue, and great journalistic outlets like Kotaku and gamesindustry.biz to keep pushing the conversation on this and keep the narrative alive, because as we all love video games, we all love this industry, but part of loving something is wanting it to be better, and not being afraid to critique it, and that's part of I mean, if you love anything, you always want to have its best interest in mind, and the gaming industry needs to take better care of its own. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And when it comes down to it, if it means that a game is delayed, I don't care how long it's delayed. If those developers can have a normal life and spend time with their families and not feel like they are working themselves to death, then that's worth it to me. Because no game, when I read this story about Treyarch, no game is worth that to me. No game. As much as I love this industry, it's not worth the human capital. It's just not. And that's just the way I feel about it. So I don't want to stay on this topic for too long, because we do have a lot more to tackle.
I do want to see. I think Finn has had a couple moments he's wanted to chime in, and as somebody who was until very recently an industry employee, like I've very much value any of your input.
Everything got. I just kind of like.
Sorry, Finn, I yell.
No, Rev, we're here for that fucking energy, Rev.
It's not you, it's Game
I
Dad
yell.
doing what he does.
What do I do? What do I do? I didn't do anything.
Oh, keep going.
Whatever. What's the next topic, Derek?
That's good, because the next topic is something that Finn does get to headline, because there's been an ongoing conversation. We have not had a chance to really put some hands on, and we had this wonderful back and forth, this very, very polite and respectful and refreshing back and forth between Finn and Reb within the group DMs about Pokemon, and about the fact that not all of the Pokemon effectively are coming back for Pokemon Sword and Shield. You cannot transfer any Pokemon in the Pokemon Bank or Home or whichever the version is going to be into Pokemon Sword and Shield. You can only transfer the ones that are in that region's like Pokedex. Versus every other game, the data has technically been there for every Pokemon.
Right. Do you mind, Finn and Derek? Do you mind if I kind of give a summary of how this came about, and then I'll let you take your argument, Finn? I don't know what you just said.
He said, "Of course." He's such a gentleman.
You gotta talk louder, man.
Your mic's cutting out again,
Is this
Finn.
the webcam mic again?
This is me trying the regular mic again.
Switch to the webcam.
No, he's
Switch
okay.
it up.
He's okay. You're fine. I just heard that. You're fine. So yeah, basically what Derek said, Sword and Shield showed up at E3. Junichi Masuda and the Pokemon team were on the stage at the Treehouse. And Junichi Masuda pointed out he was very nervous about it. You could tell because it took him forever. They were going through a translator, but even for going through a translator, God, it took him forever to actually answer this question. But yeah, so there's a regional Pokedex for the Galar region in Sword and Shield. There are Pokemon in it that are there's a bunch of Pokemon in it that are brand new. There are also an unknown amount of Pokemon that are coming in from previous generations that you can catch and obtain in the Galar region while you're playing Sword and Shield. And Junichi Masuda said that those Pokemon are all in the game. If you have, like, say, there's a Pikachu in Galar, of course there is. If you had a Pikachu in Pokemon Sun and Moon and you put it in Pokemon Bank, you could bring it forward into Sword and Shield. But if there's, I don't know what wouldn't be in there. Like, I don't know, fucking Love Disc. Like, maybe there's not a Love Disc in the Galar region, because who really likes Love Disc, really? I'm so sorry.
It's so cute, Reb.
It is cute. It is cute.
Okay. I'm sorry, that was a bad example. I can't pick like a Pokemon that everybody hates.
Well, that's
Mr. Mime. Everybody hates Mr. Mime.
I know. So let's say there's no Love Disc in the Galar region. You can't take Love Disc from Sun and Moon and bring it forward into Sword and Shield. And this is controversial. Junichi Masuda's argument was that they're at over 1,000 Pokemon now with the new ones. That's a lot. And at some point, they were going to have to draw a line, because they have to animate all these Pokemon. They have to do all these different things for them. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of work. And they're just, what he's saying, I don't think he was specifically saying that they couldn't do 1,000 for this game, but that at some point that amount of Pokemon was going to get to be way too many, and they had to draw a line, and so they decided that this was the place they were going to draw a line. This is controversial. Every Pokemon game up to this point, with the exception of Ruby and Sapphire, you've been able to obtain every single Pokemon by transferring them from previous games. It's a little weird in the Ruby and Sapphire era, but basically, I own Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and I own Pokemon Bank. And there's one afternoon when I took like multiple I had a Game Boy Advance and a DS and a 3DS, and I took my Pokemon from the original Sapphire and I transferred them all the way the fuck up. It is a convoluted ass process. This is unrelated to my argument later, but this process just sucks. It takes forever. You need like multiple systems. You have to do all these stupid things with link cables and shit, and you transfer them all the way up, and you can have them all in Pokemon Bank. So I have Pokemon from Sapphire that are still in Pokemon Bank. It's cool. But that's basically the thing. Some people are really upset about this, like Finn.
See, I have to stop right there because really upset. My disclaimer for this, because unfortunately I'm on the side of the shitlords on Twitter that are harassing Game Freak and the Pokemon Company over this, and I really don't like that fact because I'm at that weird level where yes, it's very disappointing and I wish this wasn't true, but I'm also on the side of don't be assholes to people. It's a weird dichotomy right now, but yes, my stance is I think this is a really deeply unfortunate move, and I understand their stance. And yes, logistically, 1,000 Pokemon is a lot of fucking Pokemon, but at the same time, I'm not the one that based your entire franchise on the tagline, gotta catch them all. Now, the tagline is, gotta catch some of them. I don't know. It's frustrating because for the reasons you already mentioned. Some people, a lot of people get surprised at just how deeply competitive the Pokemon community is. Like
I don't get surprised about that shit at all.
The competitive scene is absurd. I dipped my toes in it, and it was like a month-long endeavor to. It doesn't matter, but I have this beautiful handcrafted team that I spent months on in Sun and Moon. Going, boy, I can't wait for this Switch game. It's gonna be awesome, and I like when current games have forced you to beat the game with the national dex, and then after the fact, that's when you can open the floodgates. It just seems.
How many Pokemon are there now total? Like how many?
Red said over 1,000. We don't know the exact
over
number
1,000,
yet,
right? Over 1,000.
We don't know the exact number because they haven't announced all the Pokemon for Sword and Shield yet.
So it seems reasonable to me that they would want to kind of call a little bit and say, okay, so we've got to put a limit on.
I get that, but at the same time, 859 wasn't a problem. But now suddenly an extra 100 and something is, and they're like, oh no. And again, this could be super mitigated by the fact that we don't know how many aren't making the cut. It literally could be the 100 most disliked and disinterested Pokemon of all time aren't making their way over.
Sobble right now is the only Pokemon that matters.
You mean garbage?
My adorable young son Sobble is. I would love to get Caitlin's opinion on this.
So, I guess my thing, Reb said that it's not necessarily even that they couldn't do it this time, right? It's just that they were like, we're gonna make a call. And I guess to me, it makes sense that if you were going to have to make that call anyway, might as well do it when you're moving to a brand new system and a brand new kind of like look and feel of a game.
Like a fresh start kind of thing.
Yeah, and to me, and too, I'm like probably not the best person to ask because I'm like a very lapsed Pokemon fan, and I always found it kind of weird that you could transfer from the other regions. I always just kind of thought that the Pokemon from the game should be the ones that you catch, and that's
like you want everything to be self-contained.
Yeah, I'm not a completionist. Like, I've never even caught all the Pokemon in one Pokemon game, but I was like, I would get close, and then they'd be like, and now there's all these other ones you can get. And I was like, no, it's too much. I don't want it.
I've caught enough.
So long.
I'm done. I have so many of these. Like, because for me, I'm like, I like to like use my Pokemon and get attached to them. So then having like a billion, I'm like, well, these motherfuckers are all just sitting in here. Like, they're not doing anything. They're just being sad and computer space or whatever. So for me, it's not like I'm not emotionally attached or invested to having all of them.
Nurse Joy takes very good care of them.
But
Well, one thing that is interesting to me is this is the first mainline Pokemon game on an actual I get that it's a handle, but it's a console. Like it's a home console, and this is Nintendo's first mainline Pokemon game on their flagship console. The 3DS was never their flagship. And so I am a little bit surprised that they're not going all out for this one. But at the same time, I kind of tend to agree with Caitlin in that I didn't really expect them to transfer the whole big ass Pokedex over, and it doesn't I'm a new Pokemon fan, but it doesn't bother me like in the slightest bit because I don't know. It's to me it doesn't seem I'm not surprised, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. Finn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Saying it's not a big deal, I feel is a little disingenuous to the people that have been hardcore fans for the last 20 something years. I'm not saying the way they're handling the situation is right because it's not. Reb, passing it to you.
No, keep talking. I'm when you're done.
Oh, okay. And the problem with the point I'm trying to make is it's a weird, like, I acknowledge that this is the reality and I'm just kind of really deflated on it. It has knocked a little of my excitement for the new games down, even though I can't wait to play it and experience all the newness that the game has.
That's understandable.
There's a part, it's like when a fighting game comes out with a new one and it's a bigger and better roster, but they didn't carry over your favorites from the last game.
It's like when they didn't put characters from Smash Brothers Melee into Brawl or whatever.
Right,
that fucked me up. Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's a little different. I mean, I don't know.
Not really.
It's just a scale issue.
Yeah, exactly. But it's weird because at the same time, we're moving to the most powerful platform that has ever had a Pokemon game. And now is the time when they're claiming that they can't fit enough. And it's the logistics, it's the time. But the fact that we could fit 800 plus on a 3DS, but the Switch has to be downscaled seems unfortunate to me. And that's pretty much all I have to say because the end result is I am going to play it. I accept it. I just hope that my dream is that a future update is surprise, free DLC. We've now these other lost Pokemon have made their way to the new region, and then all is well. And maybe they have to do it in waves, but I don't know.
I mean, that could be a possibility, right? Like they do that with Pokemon Go.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but it also kind of seems like going back to the crunch conversation, like doing all the animations and stuff for that too. I get why it seems like Nintendo's kind of trying to move towards practices that are a little kinder to devs. So maybe like that's part of it too.
Yeah.
No, Finn, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, Reb said she had something to say after I was done.
Reb,
right,
please.
I haven't actually given my counterpoint to you yet, which is what I wanted to do.
All right, let's go, Reb. Let's do it.
I entirely understand why Finn is upset. Like that, absolutely. I have my Pokemon team in my bank because legacy shit, but I don't care. I'm never going to use them. But I get like people who have those teams and who have worked on them being upset, like totally makes sense. Or if I'm bummed out because they've got Wooloo in this game. They ain't bringing Mareep into Galar. Absolutely not. They already got a cute sheep. They don't need another one. Mareep's one of my faves. But I have two opinions on this effectively that are related but kind of independent of one another. My first is that I think this is a good thing, and I see why they're doing it, not just because of all this animation nonsense, but because Pokemon, ever since Pokemon Go, Game Freak and the Pokemon Company in general and Nintendo with their hands in it, is that they have been moving in a direction of making Pokemon more accessible. Not in the sense of accessibility like controls and things like that, because Let's Go was garbage for that. That's not what I mean. But in terms of opening it up to a wider audience that includes not just the nostalgic people who played it as kids, but also their children. Because they figured got Pokemon Go and that went nuts. And they figured out that they have these adults who have this nostalgia for the series who can now connect with like their 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and up-year-olds who are now getting to be the age where they can start playing new mainline Pokemon games. I think that's really cool. However, if you are a new person who's new, like John, you're brand new to this series, you pick up a Pokemon game and you look at that Pokedex and you see that it has, I know they're talking in chat, there's not 1,000 Pokemon. Let's just say for the sake of argument, there's exactly 1,000 Pokemon in this game. You look at that Pokedex, you see there's 1,000 Pokemon in it. Are you going to fucking complete that Pokedex?
No, I wouldn't.
But John, a person who is new to the series, who has never seen any of these Pokemon before, who the only way to get hundreds of those Pokemon. Hold on, I'm gonna make both. I'm gonna make both of my points, and then I'm gonna get off.
Fuck yeah!
The only way to catch those 1,000 Pokemon is to take several hundred of them and go back and play old games and transfer them up, or trade with people who have. That is so much work. I love that the online trading has made it easier to obtain specific Pokemon, but in terms of getting like several hundred to complete a Pokedex, that takes so much dedication and work. That is not accessible. However, if you have a Pokedex with, say, 300 or so Pokemon, that's a huge cut from what we have now. I don't know how many they're actually going to do, but I look at the number 300 and all of those are obtainable in a game. I think, wow, I can catch them all. So I think it actually does go back to that original slogan of the franchise. 1,000 is way too fucking many. That's ridiculous. Not no one. Very few people are going to do that, but gotta catch them all is meaningful to more people if there are fewer in that definition. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're doing that. And I think in that sense, it's a good reason. And that's why I'm kind of positive about it, because it makes the message of the franchise more interesting to me. Now, my other thought on this is that Game Freak has an interesting business junction coming up in front of it. They have made these games the same fucking way for years now. Like it's been, they do not iterate very much. They make these interesting mechanics. They drop them next generation and add a different one. That's what they do every time. There is not a lot of variation in each game. That's something that longtime fans have complained about for a long time. And they're doing it again on the Switch, which is an interesting choice. I don't buy into the really crazy arguments where they're like zooming in on the detail of the trees. And they're like, this game looks like shit, like whatever. But you can look at the Switch for the Sword and Shield and say, wow, this doesn't look fair. This isn't like Breath of the Wild. This isn't fully using Switch to its full capabilities. This doesn't look like how I imagined a console Pokemon game to look. And I think one of the main reasons for that is they've turned this into an annual franchise with certain expectations, and they can make a shit ton of money off doing this every single year. It's come to be expected that it's an annual franchise from Nintendo, from Pokemon Company, and Game Freak, because they get the money from it. Like it makes money. That's what companies want to do. I mean, yeah, I'm not getting into the greedy devs department. That's not what this is. But as long as the thing they're doing is working, they're going to keep doing it. And I think this backlash about the Pokedex is maybe like the first real punchback from a large enough segment of the community that it might actually have an impact. I don't really think it will. I don't think it'll have a meaningful enough one that they'll change their direction. But I do think that I wonder at some point if they're going to have to reckon with the fact that they have been doing pretty much the same thing year after year. And now that they're on a console, doing that same thing doesn't look nearly as good and isn't nearly as appealing to as many people. With Let's Go, it was fine because it was marketed as a much more simplified version of the game, and that was okay. But people were expecting a lot from Sword and Shield. I don't think they're going to get it. There is no way they are going to patch in the extra Pokemon after launch. There's no way they're going to do the DLC and the things that people want them to do. They're not going to do it. They're going to come out with another slight spin-off kind of Pokemon mainline game next year, and then the following year they will come out with the next mainline game. It will be the exact same kind of upgrade iteration that they've been doing for years.
And people will buy it.
And people will buy it, but at some point, I don't know when, I think they're going to have to reckon with that, and I'm very interested to see what the tipping point is. Okay, that's all the points I have. Go.
No, I just had one counterpoint. Because
breathe.
To the whole concept of gotta catch them all being too daunting, what the recent games have all done that have mitigated that issue is they have had a specific game Pokedex that you can easily fill that's 100 to 300 Pokemon, and you get the full reward for completing that. And it's after you beat the game that if you want to do the rest, it's there. But you get that congratulations, you caught them all feeling at a much more manageable and acceptable pace. Saki, her first go at it was Sun and Moon, and just straight up absorbed it all, completed it for Sun and Moon. When the rest of it opened, she's like, I'm okay. And she felt completely just like fulfilled and satisfied and felt a wave of accomplishment. And I got to keep going because that's what I wanted to do. And it was just nice that that option was there. So I like that they've been doing that for generations of Pokemon. And that's why I don't think it being daunting really works as a counter argument, because they give you two different Pokedexes to worry about.
So Finn, let me ask you this. What if they said, look, here's a compromise. We'll take the missing Pokemon and fill their slots with Digimon.
Oh, that's even better. I love Digimon more than Pokemon. Garurumon is the best Digimon of all time. You opened the wrong can of worms.
What if
John.
the
You
next-
gotta
Yeah,
go
you
in.
said we got
Digimon,
started.
digital
No,
monsters,
I
Digimon
regret
are
everything. I
champions.
regret everything. I regret
Hey,
everything.
Finn.
I regret it all.
Is this a Digimon?
Remaster Cyber Sleuth, you can.
What is?
That's a mistake.
nightmare.
Whatever
That's
it is.
That's an abomination, is what that is.
I got it in a box of knockoff tiny Pokemon figurines, and I don't think it's actually a Pokemon.
If Satan were a boss fight, that would be his first form.
It's
That's
not
what
a
that
form
is.
of Gabumon, so I don't even care.
Here, I'll
Kogatsu
show
in
you.
chat understands.
Hold on.
Hold on. This is the Golbat that was in the same thing.
Derek
Hi,
has
guys.
a hand up. Derek, what's up?
Sorry,
Speak on.
Derek. Go ahead.
It's
No,
okay.
he's fine. No, you're fine.
So I had, and this is actually, I want to see how Finn would feel about this. So we have part of my big problem where I understand, and I'm like, I understand it's okay to be upset, and I understand why people are upset, especially given the first thing that they do after announcing Pokemon Home, which is this service where you can, this new cloud service where you can put any Pokemon, and then you say, but the out ramp is only good for some of them. And I wonder, back in the day, we used to have Pokemon Stadium.
Mhm.
Does it maybe make sense to make this cloud service a catch-all storage battle trade system with no adventure elements attached, and then use the games themselves instead of try to like, oh, the games need to be service elements where they keep getting updated with new and you can trade old Pokemon into them, and instead use games like Sword and Shield to introduce new Pokemons and elements that will only be used in that game, like Z moves probably are not coming back. We can safely assume that Dynamax will not carry over to the next Pokemon game.
God,
I never
no.
do.
Yeah, so
That actually sounds like something they would do. That sounds like a real.
Well, no, but that's the thing is, I don't think they would, because not to speak ill of former employer, but Nintendo, like, it's too good of an idea, and it's not that difficult a concept, like, because then all you're doing is slowly updating the already subscription-based cloud app with a battle simulator and a trading system and no world or mechanics, and all you do is the new game comes out, these moves were adjusted, like Leech Life went from 20 damage to like 80 damage in Sun and Moon, then you just adjust that in.
Did it really?
Yes, but also
Why?
like everybody
No, don't tell me
lost it. Like everybody lost it. Like Zubat doesn't have Leech Life anymore. He has Absorb. It was to give bug types another like a really badass move. But anyway, like that would that do you think
Mitigate
settle
the problem?
the hedgehog in your brain?
Yes, because it gives you the opportunity to still interact. What?
Say that all again, loudly.
Oh, I mean, I even switched the mic on this one. Anyway, I was saying, can you hear me now? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying, yes, that would, because it just, the whole point is being able to play in the competitive scene and have your Pokemon and still have them and trading and battling. It wouldn't bother me as much if you couldn't use them in the adventure mode, as long as they were still available for the post-game content, I guess. And if that cloud service allowed that, I personally would be okay with it. I can't speak for others, but I think that would be a very reasonable compromise.
I just know that competitive Pokemon is like a capital T thing. And like, you know, you're never, I don't know, like I did not realize that until I attempted to expand from FGC stuff into like running Pokemon tournaments, and I was like, I'm in over my head. These people are, there's a lot of these people and they're hardcore.
I love that you sounded like Elvis when you said that. I'm in over my head. Like, that was
I'm
fucking...
sorry, I'm from the South. I can't help that sometimes.
No, that was fantastic. I do want to say that
let's move on.
Yeah, we need to move on from the Pokemon stuff because we've still got a lot of stuff we got to cover.
And that's my bad.
No,
thank
Finn,
you very
stop
much.
apologizing. We love you.
To our guest who came on to be on our show and then listened to Reb and I just go off on Pokemon for like 30 minutes. So
it's okay. It's okay.
Yay.
It's okay, baby. It's all good.
Yeah, this is honestly still the most constructive conversation around this that I've ever heard. So
I'm not apologizing for this. Stop.
Yeah.
Finn, no, Finn, you like you start to talk, and then we talk over you because we're all loud, and then when you get to talk, you stop apologizing for having opinions
Finn.
and talking
Jesus.
on this podcast that we want you to be on. We love you.
You have given the most
My God.
constructive and polite and reasonable and non-toxic conversation that I have heard about that side of the argument, and I
Meanwhile,
wish
the rest of us are just here like, oh,
yeah. I wish the rest of gaming Twitter was like half as reasonable and chill as you are about subjects like this.
He's almost as reasonable and chill as I am about Final Fantasy.
No, you are the opposite of that.
You managed to insert Final
He does it every
Fantasy
time.
into
We just need to not. It's like Kenny
single
dying in South Park. It's gonna
podcast.
happen. Just let it happen and move
Hell
on past
yes.
it. So,
All right,
Alright,
we're moving on.
Yeah.
We're moving on.
with Pokemon done.
So
Um,
real quick. This next topic is a serious one, actually, and I'm going to count on Derek and Reb and Caitlin to lead it. But I want to preface it with something very quick. We're wrapping up Pride Month, and as somebody who used to not think that there was a problem with representation many years ago, I had a different mindset than I do now. We're still not there, in my opinion, and it was underlined this morning by a tweet I saw about a straight pride parade that now has a permit in Boston. You don't need a fucking straight pride parade, boys. You don't need it. And it really made me angry because I have been in places in the world where if you are a member of the LGBTQ community, that is punishable by death. There are places in the world I've been to where they carry this punishment out. So, nowhere in the world will being straight earn you a death sentence. So you don't need a fucking straight pride parade. You don't. Shut the fuck up. You don't need it. We have a big problem with representation, not just in this industry, but in this country. And people have to be willing to stand up and recognize it for what it is. It's something that is extremely important to me. And I just, especially since I have so many friends in that community that I would give my life for. It's very important to me. So that being said, I want to wrap up Pride Month with talking about how we can better foster inclusiveness in the gaming industry. Like, fuck the rest of the world. Like, let's start with the gaming industry. Because that's something that I feel like we can help immediately affect here. Let's start there. And what I'm hoping as a straight man is to be who is an ally, to be educated.
Same.
So please.
Which of us is taking first on this one?
Derek.
I'm a baby queer. You do it.
Derek, what?
I'm technically a baby queer. I wasn't out until this year, so
Aww.
I know. I didn't
I
think
just
so.
figured out I was bi like 3 months ago.
Let's talk kind of. I do.
You guys are sweet
Yeah.
baby.
I want to talk about me being a baby gay, and I want to talk about my circumstances because I think we want to. I have an interesting, not very frequent, but I'm learning like more people identify this way than I thought. So I'm pansexual. I really don't care about the gender of the person. I think or their identity. It's pretty much doesn't play a factor in terms of whether I'm attracted to somebody like physically or romantically. But the thing is, I'm a cis man and I've been with a cis woman for like 8 years now. And like I dated a couple girls before her, but I was like a dumb nerd and didn't get many dates. But I've been with Martha for 8 years and I love her to death and I never want to go anywhere else. And for the longest time, I felt like I needed to not talk about or acknowledge anything outside of that in order to not rock the boat, but also that I wouldn't be accepted as queer because I didn't count, right? Because I'm a man with a woman, so no, you're just straight and looking for points. And thankfully, I feel like the LGBT community does not buy into that bullshit. But like I had met a few people who felt that way, and I kind of stuffed that down. And it was really only like in a wave of middle fingers that earlier this year I was like, nah, fuck it. Here I am.
I'm so proud of you.
You shouldn't be.
No, he should be, and I am too, because like you just, I know it's never as easy as it appears on the surface, but you talk about it with such perceived ease and confidence. And you and I have a lot of similarities in our stories, and so it makes me feel like it. I mean, listening to the stuff that you talked about made me feel like, oh, it's actually really okay if I talk about this too. Like, it's fine.
Well, and maybe that's like, cause obviously I can not really speak to what it means to be an ally, because even when I was just an ally, I really had more skin in the game than that. But so speaking as a queer person, like, okay, Pride Month is about to wrap up. It's 1 month out of the year. And while we've got eyes on us, like, I don't always feel comfortable suggesting what other people should do, like what allies should do, because I'm relatively new to actually being open in the scene and not just like pretending I'm a straight man because it's easy and convenient. But like, I wish I had seen more conversations about like bi and pan erasure way earlier, and I might have come out way earlier. And honestly, I want to give a huge shout out to our buddy Nick Electivirus, now Doofy Books on Twitter, who was really, really helpful with me into like, it really sometimes can take one really good queer friend to help you accept that and become more open about it. And if it wasn't for other queer people in gaming Twitter, in our circles, then I still might be in the closet, you know? So it's important that, I feel like it's important that we be like loud and open and forward as much as we individually are comfortable with. And then maybe one step further than that, because that can help other people. That's what I got.
I want to kick it over to, why am I leading this? Derek, you take it. Kick it over to Caitlin.
Caitlin, wait, did you just...
you do it.
Why am I leading this? Caitlin, I was just curious. What you know, as you know, as somebody who is openly queer, how do you like? There's a lot of bullshit that floats around this community, right?
Mhm.
And you have your own podcast. So like, how do you address these issues on your podcast, or when you're streaming, or when you find somebody who is, let's just say, I guess, being belligerent? How do you, like, what is your reaction? What goes through your head, and how do you manage those situations?
So I'm actually largely pretty lucky in that I don't deal with too much bullshit online. I've gotten like a handful of bad things as opposed to like the onslaught that I know like a lot of folks deal with. Kind of to what Derek was talking about, like, I am very gay and very open about it. I'm a really loud fucking queer, and that's kind of been my objective for a long time, because I've been out forever. I've been out since I was like 13, so I'm an old gay. And I just got tired of feeling shitty about it. So when I realized like I'm a loud, obnoxious person anyway, so then I was like, well, I can be loud and obnoxious and also gay. That was kind of how I went about it. And that's kind of why our site exists, because when I decided I wanted to start doing this, I didn't really see anybody like me doing it, especially in the small space. Which there's actually a ton of queer people in like games media. It's really, really cool. Like, there's all tons of like queer and trans folks doing this shit, and it's rad as hell. But in my space, I didn't see anybody doing it, so I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna be the gay games website, and that's what we're gonna do. And so we try really hard with our content coverage is mostly queer stuff. Our staff, with the exception of Andrew, is all queer femme people. Andrew's our token cis white man, and he stays behind the scenes for that reason.
We all need one.
Do we?
Or 9 in our case.
Yeah.
If any of us knew how to, honestly, if any of us knew how to do video shit, he wouldn't have a job, but we don't. So it goes sometimes. You have to have that diversity hire. But yeah, so we try to center us.
That just hit me.
God damn it.
That's so good. That's so good. Jeez.
But so yeah, so we try to center queer folks in pretty much everything we do because we are queer folks, and we're not the best at it. We still need to be better about like centering like people of color too. But I mean, we just did for our Pride package, like we excuse me, sorry. We just got a bunch of shit actually when we launched the thing for doing our Pride package and asking for only queer writers, and we got a bunch of comments being like, "Oh, it's you're whatever. It's bad that you only want gay people. What about other people?" And I was like, I don't care about other people.
Good.
Like,
Excellent.
And that's the thing. That's the super nice thing about running my own site is I don't have to give a shit about anybody but me.
Exactly.
Like, half the time my like fucking coworkers can't stop me. Like, I do whatever I want. And so that's basically what we told them. So yeah, we've had we'll have 4 as of tomorrow queer people writing for our site. And then on top of that too, like our other content has all been focused on queer people. We highlighted queer cosplayers. Like, our brand is just real gay and that's just what we do. And so like, I don't know, I don't know if that was a good enough answer, but that's how we deal with it, is just by being gay as hell and centering ourselves and other queer folk.
That's fucking outstanding. I'm really, like I said, I've listened to some of your content, and I've got such a huge amount of respect for you for what you do over there, Caitlin. And you exude a really admirable sense of poise and strength, and I really admire that.
You'd have been much better off saying big gay energy than any of that.
Gay energy, yeah, right? Like,
yes, I pride myself on my big gay energy, so thank you.
Well, and speaking of big gay energy, Reb is also what was it? Derek who said a baby? Who said a baby gay? Was it Caitlin? Caitlin said a baby gay. Reb is a baby gay too. I'm never getting over that term, by the way. That I'm gonna be laughing about that for the next week.
They're gabies.
All we did was make a worse pun out of it, but I still love it.
It's never a dull week on SDGC on Thursday nights. Oh boy, Reb, Jesus. So Reb, as somebody who has recently come out, I'm trying to figure out the best way to frame this. How has it changed your, like, now that you're open and you're out, how has it changed your perspective of how the industry handles LGBT issues? And do you, now that you are openly part and parcel of this community, do you feel like, I don't know, what's your take on it, Reb? I'm not really sure how to frame the question. But...
Right, no, I think I know where you're going. So a little bit of background. I see a lot of people in chat talking up in like really either conservative communities or really religious communities, or just communities that in general were not kind to LGBTQ folks. And I was that too. I grew up in a super religious community, and I was a bigot. I was a huge jackass. I thought that straight was the only option. Everyone else was going to hell. I had a lot of really bad opinions. I was a really awful person up until like not like yesterday recently, but several years ago, like in recent memory, like college, like beginning of college memory. I was not a great person. And I won't go into the whole details of how that changed, but my point is, when I was growing up, I didn't think I had any other options other than to be straight. I didn't consider any other options. And I got married to a straight man. I'm also assuming I was straight because I didn't think there was any, I never considered dating women to be anything that I would ever do. And it wasn't until fairly late in that relationship that I played Stardew Valley, and I was picking a romantic partner, and I was like, trying to romance all the guys because I thought, oh, I'm playing a girl character, I'm supposed to marry a guy, and I didn't like any of the guys. I mean, they were fine. Elliot's nice. Sebastian's fine, but he's a smoker. That's not my thing, personally. But they just all had like kind of a thing, and I was like, I don't really know who I want to marry. I guess I'll just pick somebody. And then I started building up a friendship with Abigail. and I really liked her.
Yeah.
And yeah. And
Abigail is gay bait. That bitch is in there for us.
She is. And I kept playing the game and I realized, wow, I like this character. This is great. And I'm like, wait, no, I like her. I want to marry her. I want my girl character to marry another girl character. And this is fine. And I tried to dismiss it as just like something that was happening in the context of a video game. It wasn't great. But I was also dealing with some other stuff that year and kind of thinking, because I was looking into these kinds of issues, right? Because I thought I might be asexual as well for various reasons. And so I was looking into that and I thought, wait, if I am asexual, then I actually don't like, I mean, I'm married, obviously, I don't care. Like that's outside the issue. But if I was dating, I don't think I would care whether I was dating a married woman. I don't think it would make a difference to me realistically. Like it depends on the person and not anything to do with their gender or sexuality. I don't think I care about that. And for reasons unrelated to that, I ended up separating from my husband back in January. So I'm not married anymore. And so it was weird. It was completely unrelated to that. I suddenly have this, I was in a situation that Derek was in where I was feeling this strange thing, but didn't know how to explore it. Because I thought I was happy in my relationship, but now I'm in this new context where suddenly I have the freedom to explore it. And so it's been kind of interesting to try different words for what I am. Like I was calling myself asexual last year. I don't think I actually am. I think I'm probably demi or somewhere in there, like gray. There's a bunch of different words thrown around there. I don't think they're necessarily useful for everybody for describing what I am, but it's helpful to think about sometimes when I'm trying to categorize myself. Derek calls himself pan. I call myself bi. I think I might end up switching to pan at some point down the line. I just haven't like dated a ton of people. And so I don't actually know if like where my preferences lie there. I don't know if I care. I might change at some point, but that's great. Like I have that freedom. It's whatever works to describe myself. And that's all okay. And video games have helped me do that because like I'm playing The Sims 4 right now and my character's dating men and women and everybody else. Like it's fine, it's great. And it helps, I know it's not real life, but it helps to be able to sort of compartmentalize right with like a self-insert character to think about it in terms of like, well, this is my character who I've modeled after me. What are the kinds of things I like in other characters? Well, I don't like it when they're mean. I don't like this trait. I don't like that, but I do like this. And whether they're a man or a woman, that's fine with me. And I think about that like in terms of real life too. Like what would I consider? So I think my big takeaway for the gaming industry is that I see a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of people who are just massive jackasses. I mean, that is what it is. But there are also a lot of people who are just kind of indifferent or kind of have these dismissive opinions. Like, well, I don't really care if people are gay. I don't really care if there are gay people in these games, but I don't know why everyone's making such a big deal out of it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if they want to put gay people, fine. If they don't, fine. Like, whatever. Why are we talking about this? Why is this important? Just let people make what they want to make. Artistic integrity. But like, I think it's important right now to like, to elevate queer voices. If you have the power to elevate queer voices, if you're in a position of power, if you're running an outlet, or if you're running a podcast, or if you're running something, if you're running a studio, if you're in a position of power to elevate queer voices, and if you're in a position to put more representation in games, and also to make your games have more representation, to do that, because I would never have known that my options weren't just being straight if I hadn't had games, and if I hadn't had people on Twitter, the internet, talking about, like, if I hadn't had people like Derek saying, yeah, I'm in what appears to be a hetero marriage, married partnership, but I am pan, and that's fine. Like, those two things are not mutually exclusive. I can be both of those things. That was so important for me to hear. And it's important for me to know that, yeah, I can date women, and that's fine. But also I can, date men, and that's fine too. And that doesn't make me any less bi or pan or whatever the fuck I am. Like all those things are fine. But the only reason why I know those things is because I've been part of the gaming community. And like you said, Caitlin, the gaming community is very loudly and delightfully queer. It really is. And it's getting louder and louder now that it seems that those folks have a little more freedom to talk about those things. And so you said at the beginning of the segment that you wanted it to be kind of like, what do people who are not queer do to elevate, those who are, and to be better allies? And I think the thing is just elevate their voices when they're talking about issues, LGBTQ issues, but also elevate them when they're not.
Exactly.
Like people on Twitter put that shit in their bios. You know that shit about people. If you see them writing something that has absolutely nothing to do with being queer, elevate that shit too. Because like it's really important to talk about this stuff. It's also really important to elevate the stuff that they do that has nothing to do with it, because we're not just here to talk specifically about those issues. We have other things to offer, and that's how we get that community represented.
Yeah, that 100%. Like the number of times with other like queer freelancers that I've had the conversation of, oh, I think I'm only getting pitches accepted when they're about like diversity is fuck, I would be rich. It's horrible. Like, I mean, and yeah, like we're gay writers, we write about being gay, but like that shouldn't be the only thing that gets us work or that gets us noticed. Because that's the only way, like I hate the word normalize because there's a very loaded word, but like that's the only way that you like, for lack of a better word, that's the only way that you normalize people in the industry and make it like just a thing, you know? Like if you continue to tokenize us, then that's all we're ever gonna be.
Yeah. I agree. And you know, like
sorry, the thing Imran just put in chat too, that's like a super thing you can do. If pronouns are not something that matter to, put them in your Twitter bio anyway.
I will put them, I'm going to put my pronouns in my Twitter bio after the podcast.
I know you just said normalizing is a funny word, but that's a case where I think it's used well. Normalizing pronouns is super helpful because it creates safe spaces for queer people who actually kind of feel they need to tell people like I mean there's a whole conversation about pronouns.
Imran
I don't know the whole thing, but just put them in your bio. It's helpful.
Most people would assume
like, that's the easiest act of allyship. It does not hurt you to put your pronouns out.
Yeah, it's literally takes no effort from anybody. Like most people would very, very easily assume, and whether, I mean, it's not really a good idea to assume anything, but people would look at me and they would go, oh, that's a guy, he, him. And like for me to put he, him in my bio, like I'm not correcting anybody's probably initial assumption about me, but if I do that, then it's not unusual for anybody to do that, right? Like, and it's not people like me, even as somebody who is queer, like who needs for that to become a common part of like my dialogue and my conversation. You know, but if people become used to the concept that is a thing that they need to be aware of, because ignorance is as big a part of this as malice. Like there are going to be people who look in my bio and see that I have pronouns. They're just going to be like, duh, you're one of those nerds with pronouns in your bios. And I can just be like, well, and you're a fucking dumbass block. But like,
that's a really good way to filter out people you don't want on your Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. It's really easy. But
anybody who's got a problem with it is welcome to come find me at a con and talk to me about it.
Yeah, but We'll enlighten everybody.
I'll fucking fight. Like, let's go, honestly.
Let's go. Let's get scrappy.
I'll be at PAX West. I'll be wearing a big yellow beanie if you want to talk about it. I'm sure we can have a measured conversation.
Yeah, but but just because ignorance, and it's not bad to be ignorant. We are all born into ignorance, and none of us are going to know this stuff from the start. And I even understand and forgive if you don't know something, you can't really seek it out. But like, that's why it's important to increase the exposure to these concepts, I feel like, because then people can see the pronouns in the bios of all these people as an example, and go, oh, okay, this is a thing. And they're either going to fall in line with it and be cool, or they're going to be a shithead, and we can know that we don't have to give a shit about literally anything that they say or do. You know, I mean, you're when you get properly exposed to these things, like, and if you choose to just be like, meh, like, at least you're not participating in the harassment, but you're aware. So
yeah, I think something else good too is just like, it's okay to ask people their pronouns. Like, I feel like a lot of people think it's super awkward, but like John asked me and I appreciated it because like I'm non-binary and people like are weird about it. So it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to just be able to be like, hey, what pronouns do you use? And then just like, yeah, it's, I think, more respectful than fucking it up.
Well, I just want to make sure that you feel welcome here. Finn, go ahead.
Finn first.
I was just saying, I think another big thing that you can do is if you do accidentally just assume a pronoun and they correct you, don't get defensive. That's the worst thing you can do. Just apologize, and from that point on, use the proper pronoun. But if you start getting like oh, you never told me, like, what? That's the wrong approach. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going somewhere else with that. I was like,
No, it's
No,
so,
like I think
people
there's a
get really
tendency. People get weird about it. I mean, I don't know. I use she, her, and I present very feminine, so I've never had this issue. But just from reading other people's experiences with it, some people get weird and they like try to over apologize. They freak out and they keep bringing it up, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry," and they just keep going. And my understanding is that that's not especially helpful. Just like apologize once, correct yourself, and move on.
Yeah.
Like don't make
because you're making it about yourself at that point. Like you're not saying I'm sorry I fucked up. You're saying, oh, I fucked up and I feel bad about it, and like it's a whole thing.
I need you to please validate my feelings about fucking up.
Well, and what I've noticed is I think people seem to think that I'll say specifically straight people in regards to general queerness, or like cis people when it comes to trans and non-binary people, if they're not really comfortable or familiar with that, they assume they're gonna get chewed out because they've been told by a lot of people, by the media, by society, by bad faith actors, that we're gonna chew them out for getting anything wrong. And I've literally never seen that happen. I have never seen a trans or non-binary person like jump down somebody's throat and eviscerate them for getting the pronouns wrong like the first time, because we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to throw punches at everybody who gets something wrong, which is going to be most people. It's and we know when somebody's doing it in bad faith, when you repeatedly kind of intentionally make the fuck up and make no effort to actually correct yourself.
That's when you're actually
when we start going, all right, bud.
That's when you're trying to provoke a reaction.
Yeah, exactly. And we can tell. We know because we have to be able to know. Like, it's a necessary skill when you're queer in any way, shape, or form. So if you're not queer, like, don't worry, don't overthink it. Just come into it. Like, don't keep your distance, because that's hurtful too. Yeah,
well,
we'll help you.
Like, I think it's like a we're more afraid of you than you are of it situation. Like, for them, like for cishet like straight people, if you fuck up someone's pronouns and they yell at you, like, they yelled at you. Oh no. Like, people are dealing with a lot worse shit for being who they are. So like, you can probably suck it up, and like if someone is pissed off, like you could probably just be fine.
I'm just like, I've been through boot camp. I'll be okay. Like, I fucked up, and that's the thing, right, Caitlin? It's like, okay, look, as a straight guy, I'm not always gonna get it right. I'm not. I'm gonna fuck up somebody's pronouns at some point, and they might get mad at me, rightfully so. All I can do is say, okay, noted. I fucked up. I won't the next time. You know?
I mean, I think that's exactly it. And like most people, like I think Derek's right. Like most people aren't gonna flip out. Like I think most people are afraid to flip out because like they don't want to get hate crimed.
Because that's when people pull out their camera phones and shit.
Yeah, like there's a whole, look at the reaction. Like we have so much more risk coming at cishet straight people than they do at us. Like it's just true. And I mean, I think most people know, like, yeah, you're gonna fuck it up. Like, when I was only using they, them pronouns, I knew people were gonna fuck it up. And I was just like, hey, don't forget, this is the pronoun I use. And it did get to a point where it was like, if you fuck it up more than like 3 times, I am gonna yell at you. But, like, it's just silly. Like, you shouldn't be afraid because of your pride or because of, like, your anxiety that you're gonna get yelled at. Because, like, again, people are dealing with worse. And, like, if you get yelled at, just grow.
I think, as a straight guy, and I think for it's important for people like me and Finn and Brandon to be allies and to stand up for our LGBTQA our friends, because we still have a problem with representation in the industry, right? Like that's the bottom line. And you don't have to look any farther than Twitter comments to PlayStation's Pride Month theme to see that. It's right there. I look forward to the day when when we have to stand up, we have to stand up for our friends. I look forward to the day when we don't have to, because it's just what it is. It's accepted. And that's what I want. I want everybody to be treated equally, and I hate that they're not. I really, really, really hate that they're not, and it just, I don't know. It bothers me. It really bothers me. Derek.
Okay, I was gonna say I feel like we're pretty much at the end of what can be said without like basically bringing up more personal experiences, and if anybody feels differently, please tell me wrong. But if we're gonna exit this and move on to questions, I just want to leave one last comment that none of us are really equipped to directly and personally tackle, but for everything we've just said about the difficulties that queer people face, and the importance for people to be allies, we need to recognize that those problems are like exponentially worse for queer people of color. And obviously we're a bunch of white people, or at least white presenting,
We're
sitting on a podcast.
white.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like red right now, but that doesn't count. I'm still very pasty and very Dutch. So yes.
Oh no,
I love Derek's like, yes.
I thought you had a good joke to chime in.
No, I was just gonna say I'm ironically the least white of us all, ethnically, even though I act and look the most white.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Okay, but so it's important to note that, for example, when we talk about like violence against trans women, right? Well, violence against Black and Hispanic trans women is gonna be so much worse than for trans women as a whole. People of color experience a magnified version of what all of us are going through already often. This is the case with like every social factor in life, because that's how intersectionality works. It's just, it feels like the more attributes you pile on, the worse people fucking treat you sometimes. But like, keep that in mind. I don't feel it's my place to, because I do not have the experiences as a person of color, to speak to how that would have affected my life. But again, like if you get snapped at because you get something wrong, like queer people of color are experiencing even more stress and even more shit than you can ever possibly imagine as somebody who's trying to be an ally. So don't take that personally. Don't take that personally from any queer person, but just, know how that compounds, I guess I should say.
Follow those people, listen to those people, and elevate their voices.
And please,
and shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and please, like,
fucking preach.
And please, if I fuck up, we have a large LGBTQ audience, a large one. If I fuck up, tell me. If I need to be educated, tell me. Please, I want you to tell me. So for the rest of the conversation, we got about 10 minutes left, right? And I want to end. So we've got a ton of questions.
Brandon has been quiet. I want Brandon to answer every single one of them for all of us.
So I'm actually going to throw the so here's
all right, 20 questions in 10 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah,
no. So a lot of these questions I think we're going to tackle tomorrow on our morning show, but
okay.
I think because there are some really in-depth questions that we just don't have time for tonight. But there are a couple questions we can answer pretty quickly, and I got some fun ones here. This one is from @Andy McFlandy on Twitter, and Andy wants to know, and I'll throw this to Brandon first because Brandon hasn't had a chance to talk much. What is the best video game pet or animal friend?
Oh, that is a good question.
It's a fantastic question.
I
want to hear what people in chat think too.
Okay. I'm gonna go with my childhood favorite. Because obviously I don't really care about animals anymore now. I'm old and bitter.
God.
When I was a
Your
kid, it
poor
was
soul.
Squawks the Parrot from Donkey Kong Country 2.
Squawks the Parrot. Now there's a fucking name I haven't heard in a long time.
In 7th grade art class, I made a paper mache Squawks.
Nice.
That's so cool.
Brandon, Jesus, that's wholesome.
Hell yeah.
That's wholesome as fuck, Brandon. Holy shit.
When I was like 12 years old, yeah.
Squawks the motherfucking Parrot. I have not heard that name in
It's
God.
one of the lesser,
Is it the same one in Donkey Kong
been 80
4 that like
long
descends
years.
and goes and then tells you some
Yeah.
information and then leaves?
I
I
think
love it.
so.
Yeah,
That's
fucking
great.
Squawks. Annoying little bastard. Caitlin.
He was best in Donkey Kong 2.
Was he in any other game other than Donkey Kong 2?
I think he was in 3 as well.
Was he?
And then I think he was in Donkey Kong Country Returns, but like in like a cameo.
He must, yeah, because I played that like just like a little over a year ago actually on 3DS, and I don't.
He was most important in 2.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Squat. Oh, he was a shopkeeper in Tropical Freeze.
Yeah. Like he had cameo roles.
Okay, right. Yeah, he's a bit player. Caitlin, what is your favorite? What is your favorite video game pet or animal friend?
I like the dog from Dragon Age Origins.
I only played like an hour of that.
That's like my favorite. Well, okay. I think I finally come to terms with the fact that Battleship Brigade is like my favorite video game ever and like my true passion in life. But Dragon Age Origins is like was my favorite video game for a very long time, and I love that fucking dog so much.
Could you pet the dog?
Yes, not all the time, but sometimes. If you like talk to him at the camp, he would like roll over and be real cute, and you could like scratch his belly.
Oh hell yes.
He's also like optional, like you can miss him. So every friend I've had who I've tried to get to play that game, I like scream at them for the first 3 hours of the game to make sure that they get the dog, because he dies otherwise.
Oh no, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, if you don't get him, he dies. So
that's fucking awful.
It's a sad.
That's terrible.
Game. Dragon Age Origins is just like, what if everything was bad? And you're like, great.
So the dog. So hey, by the way, could you name the dog?
Yes.
What did you name your dog?
I always named him either Baxter or Sir Barkington.
Sir Barkington. Oh fuck. Reb, where are you going?
She lost it at Sir Barkington. I'm sorry. It's over.
Reb, did you hear the name? Did you hear the name of Caitlin's dog in Dragon Age Origins?
No.
Caitlin, please repeat that.
His name is Sir Barkington.
That's so fucking good.
One's precious.
Oh, Reb. No, I love it. I love Sir Barkington. That's good. Is that a cat?
Yeah. That's Robo.
Wow.
It's Sir Meowington.
That is
Robo.
it's Mr. Buttons. Finn.
Yes.
You had your hand up.
What the fuck? Shut up.
I have two, and I wanted to go before you because I didn't want you to steal it. Because one of them is Interceptor from Final Fantasy VI.
That wasn't going to be mine.
Okay. Well, I couldn't be sure. And the other
I thought about it.
The other one is more of a deep cut. It's Missile the dog from Ghost Trick, which is just one of the best dogs in video games.
I don't even know what that game is.
It's a
Ghost
great
Trick
DS
is
game
one
that
of the
nobody played.
best DS games that no one's ever played.
Interesting. Okay. I actually thought of, so I guess I'll go next, right? Because it's a springboard from what Finn said, right? So Finn said Interceptor, and I thought about that, Finn. Like I was thinking about Interceptor, but honestly, like right now, and this may change later, but my favorite animal friend from any game is the fucking dog from Super Mario Odyssey, because I can throw my hat to him, and he will catch it in his mouth.
Oh, he's good.
And he'll run around in the most wholesome of circles.
Oh.
And
I am admittedly disappointed they didn't use Poochie for that role.
I am too, but
He is a good dog though.
I discovered that by accident when I threw my hat and he like caught it and wagged his little tail. I was like, and I may or may not have spent the next 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, just throwing my hat to the dog and playing fetch over and over and over. It's so fucking good. That is my favorite. That right now, it used to be the dog from Resident Evil 4, but now it's the dog from I almost said Resident Evil Mario. Resident Evil Mario. Now it's a dog from Super Mario Odyssey. Reb, what about you?
So I'm normally a dog and cat person. I mean, I've got this thing right here.
As you've got a cat on your lap.
She's beautiful. But I'm really attached in World of Warcraft. The expansion I played the most probably was Warlords of Draenor, and it was actually a really boring expansion all in all, but I played it a lot because it was with the guild and I was raiding at the time. And there was this little bird we had these garrisons or whatever that we could like build up, and there was this little bird that lived in a tree in your garrison. His name was Pepe. He's this little orange bird, and you click on him and he would appear on your head, and he would sit on your head, and he would make little tweety noises. It was super cute. And there was an achievement where if you clicked on him and got Pepe, he would disappear if you died. So you clicked on him, you got him on your head, and you had to complete like every dungeon with Pepe on. You had to complete the last boss with him on your head, so you couldn't die throughout the whole dungeon. You had to have Pepe the whole time, and then you had to complete like a certain amount of raid bosses as well with him on your head. So it was really hard to do at the time. Now it's pretty easy because that content's really old. You can just solo it. But the time was really difficult, and I did that at the time. And the reward was you got this item called the Transdimensional Bird Whistle. And it's an item where you click on it and Pepe appears on your head. and and you can call him at any time without going back to this old content. And they started adding little costumes for him in the game, and you could find these costumes and pick them up, and then he would appear randomly dressed in one of these costumes. So there's like a scarecrow outfit and a scuba outfit and all these different outfits. And I still have that whistle, and I raid semi-regularly in World of Warcraft, and it's on my bar of required buffs. So before every raid, I give myself like my stat buffs and things, and I always put Pepe on my head.
Is that Pepe?
That's
Oh,
Pepe.
never mind. Oh, no. Oh, never mind. That's an owlet.
No, this is Pepe.
Oh, that is Pepe.
And he even has these little cute feet clips.
He looks like a Pokemon.
He's got these little cute feet clips, so I can technically.
Oh,
you can actually. Reb, why have you not done this before on this
He's so in my
podcast?
head. Because I don't like to talk about my weird ass World of Warcraft shit on
It's
this
not weird. It's
podcast.
lovely. It's delightful. There's nothing weird about that.
Yeah, this is honestly the most wholesome WoW content I've experienced.
I
I
don't think Reb is even allowed to not be wholesome. Like,
I mean, if we're grabbing stuffed animals.
Oh my god, everybody. Since John's doing that, in second place is definitely Poochie, specifically from Yoshi's Woolly World, because the yarn version is darling.
I'm just going to get my cactar.
Oh, that's not a pet. Whatever.
It is a pet.
It's
How
something.
dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
John, it's a cactus. You're not supposed
Holy
to.
shit, look at Derek's dog.
Derek has a literal dog over there. He has 2 literal dogs over there. I don't like that.
All right, Derek, get your ass back to the mic and tell us.
all right. I'm gonna go with probably. I'm torn between either Sif from Dark Souls or Rapide from Tales of Vesperia, and they fall into a very similar category of they're very good dogs, and they hold sharp things in their mouths, and they both appear to be very, very grumpy, but they are actually just very good dogs. Rapide gets more time to actually be a character in Tales of Vesperia, and gets to be like, oh, I'm a gruff, like, wolfy dog, and then you get to see that he's just a big, cute puppy. Sif is a boss fight and doesn't really count as much, but
Dark Souls.
But I'm clearly a dog person, so
Sif is a really good one.
yeah, but Rapide does that better. So
I was just gonna say, I'm just saying, like, you
Yeah.
know,
but Sif is a
I
good
feel
dog.
like Sif brings the feels. Sif brings the feels because if you go back and you do the city of Ulusil,
If you're
DLC
stupid and
first,
you do the DLC, which is super hard way before the much easier Sif boss fight, then yeah, you get the cutscene where Sif remembers you from being in the past.
So for anybody in chat who's never played Dark Souls, you go back in time in the DLC, and if you do it first, if you do it before the actual Sif boss fight, you find Sif as a pup, and you save her. If you then progress through the game and you get to the Sif boss fight, she will, instead of like snarling at you and ready to fight, she will sniff you and whine and reluctantly fight you because she remembers you from having saved her. And I was like, I did that once and I let her kill me. I couldn't do it.
Wow,
Yeah.
fuck Dark Souls,
That's right.
actually.
I couldn't do it. I was like, no, because as you're fighting Sif, when her health is almost gone, she starts limping around. And I'm like, no, I can't. I can't. Dark Souls is amazing, but
Sif is the one like heartstring tugging boss.
I couldn't do that to Sif. Not my precious girl. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the heart. I let her kill me. And then I stopped that playthrough because it was too much. It was just too much. I think everybody's gone, right? Have we all talked about our favorite dog and pet? Or our favorite pet, our favorite video game animal friend?
I do believe so.
I think everybody's. So here's what we'll do. So of course, tomorrow we have our morning podcast. And so I think tomorrow morning we will go ahead and answer some of these tougher to tackle questions. Some of these more involved questions. That'll be we can fill an hour with that tomorrow morning. And I want to thank. So we had a lot of good conversation tonight. I want to thank Caitlin for joining us tonight. Thank you so much, Caitlin.
You're a goddamn delight.
You're fucking great.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you
come
for
back.
having me. It was super
Please-
exciting.
Please come back soon.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever y'all want to have me, I'm down.
Hell yeah. Caitlin, why don't you remind everybody in chat where they can find you and your podcast?
So you can find me, the person, at CG and 8Rs on Twitter. And then you can find my website and we do 2 podcasts over there, Palin Around and Indie Mixtape. You can find both of those over at Your Geeky Gal Pal. And we're also doing a big charity stream on Saturday. So if you want to check that out, we're raising money for Trans Lifeline. And you can drop by twitch.tv/YourGeekyGalPal. It's going to be real fun.
That is fucking outstanding. And Caitlin does great work over there, and I highly recommend everybody go over to Twitter and follow her, and please follow Your Geeky Gal Pal on Twitter and check out her content because you're doing great work. We really appreciate you being here, Caitlin.
Thank you for having me.
And I promised a really cool announcement in chat before we signed off here. So if you didn't see it on Twitter, I have rounded up a group of former Kind of Funny Games Daily co-hosts. There's 9 of us and future co-hosts as well. And we are going to be recording kind of a panel on our thoughts about our experiences as small content creators on Greg Miller's platform, on Kind of Funny, and how it has affected our channels and our lives. And it will have an intro video recorded by Greg himself. He's aware of it. He is going to help us with it. And it will be on SDGC's channel. And we're really, really excited about it. So it's going to be great. I'm expecting the video from Greg any day now, and he's going to introduce it, and then we will go ahead and talk about our experiences on Kind of Funny. So very, very, very excited about that. I'm seeing some funny shit in the chat right now. I'm trying not to laugh at it. But a great podcast tonight. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. I have a little too much bourbon tonight. And don't forget, we have our morning podcast tomorrow morning. And as always, it's not always poetry, and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So please, until next Thursday, everybody take care of each other, and we will see you again very soon.